Whether it's stubbornness or confidence, it's been so long since the Alfa Romeo Giulia Quadrifoglio was launched that not only have we had a new M3 that was then succeeded, and not only has AMG gone from a V8 to a fully hybrid C63, but we've also gone from an iPhone 6 to an iPhone 15. But the new Giulia is here for 2024 with a key batch of updates. Has it been worth the wait, or are you better off going for its more advanced rivals? The first change is to the Ferrari-derived twin-turbo V6, which is nestled right up against the bulkhead with 520 horsepower, 10 more than before. And no doubt to keep up with its more potent rivals, Alfa's also given the engine a wider torque band for added muscle. And that muscle is pressed harder into the ground by a stiffer rear anti-roll bar and a limited slip differential back here, pinched from the monstrous limited run GT8, which promises better agility, more stability and higher cornering speeds. Plus, there have been some crucial changes to the car's digital interior tech, but we'll get to that in just a bit because I think you'll be more interested in this bit. Yeah, I reckon you're here for this stuff, the driving, because this is an Alfa Romeo, which means it's all about getting behind the wheel and enjoying the emotion of this car. And there is a lot of emotion, especially compared with its rivals. The AMG C63 from Mercedes and the BMW M3 are both technically amazing, but, well, they're heavier and they're definitely more expensive. That C63 is 2.1 tons and almost 100 grand. And that's because they've got all this clever technology, but this is much, much simpler. It hasn't got hybridization. It's just got a Ferrari-derived twin-turbo V6, which sounds like this. And of course, it's got that wonderful exhaust snarl as well out the back if you get the Oxfordshire exhaust, which is highly recommended. And now we've got a crucial change to this engine because we have a wider torque band. We've got 10 horsepower more at the top, but that only matters on track. What matters on the road is the muscle of the engine, and you get that with this extended 600 Newton meters window. And it basically means you can be in a higher gear and work the engine even though you haven't changed down a gear. It feels more muscular, more effortless, and easier to drive, but no less rewarding. Okay, the gearbox in this car, an 8-speed automatic produced by ZF. Yes, it feels a bit ancient now compared to those rivals. The M3 gearbox, it's changed gear before you've released the shift paddle. This thing definitely has a minor amount of hesitation. If it was 2015 when this car was first launched, I'd be saying this car has rapid gear changes, but in 2024, it can at moments feel a tiny bit hesitant, but we are talking a tiny amount.
The hesitation is easily forgiven though, because each gear change feels so satisfyingly tactile thanks to a pair of cold to the touch milled aluminium shift paddles. They put more exotic cars like the Audi R8 and its plastic paddles to shame.
These, on the other hand, are lovely and they are a real experience to use. They sound great and they feel like a Ferrari. And that lovely shift action is matched not only by the engine, but also the way this car rides. They've made some tweaks, but the good bits remain as they always were. The good bits definitely remain because this car feels infinitely playful and adjustable. And you know what? Cars like the M3 are definitely that as well, but they always feel like the car is doing a load of work and it feels like almost you're kind of a passenger in a tremendously capable car, whereas in this you feel like you are part of everything that's going on. Don't get me wrong, the Alfa's doing a lot of work, but it's the way it makes you feel.
It helps, of course, that the Quadrifolio is considerably lighter than its rivals. At over 1.6 tons, it's no featherweight, but it's over 100 kg lighter than the M3 and more than a whole Citroën Ami lighter than the battery-laden C63. The Hot Giulia has a smaller footprint than its rivals as well, so it's much easier to explore its full potential out on the open road.
And one of the key reasons for that is because of that weight that I mentioned, but also because of the balance of this car. It feels so evenly footed. And because it rides well, it means on a bumpy British B road, which can often be punishing for a car, especially one over 2 tons, well, this thing just glides over them. It doesn't bludgeon through the bumps, it just floats across them. Okay, there is one Achilles heel behind the wheel, and this is one thing that remains before, and that is that the brakes can feel a little bit numb at points. There's kind of nothing to the pedal and then quite a lot, but actually, I think that's a good thing, because once you learn to adapt to them, it means that you can actually be quite aggressive with the controls, but the car just makes you drive smoothly. So you have very powerful brakes. These are really, really strong rotors, but you don't ever find yourself over braking, and you're able to really neatly judge the car. That's also true on power, because this car now has a stiffer rear anti-roll bar and that limited slip differential that I mentioned before. What that does is it helps you to put the power down more neatly. And yeah, it absolutely works. It feels a step above. And it certainly feels like it's connected to that legendary GTA. I love that car, even if it was worth a lot of money, way over 100 grand for one of those things.
And if you're wondering whether the changes to Alfa's Hot Giulia affect its on-track performance, the answer is yes. With that new hardcore limited slip diff pinched from the GTA, there's no more overheating E-diff, which means more laps and more fun.
And yet you can get one of these, all right, still close to 80 grand, but when they're used, well, they come down quite quick. And don't get me started on the prices of the 280s. On cinch, they're under 20 grand. So that's the fun stuff, but what's it like to live with? Well, when you look in the fuel tank, you'll spot just 58 litres. And given that this car only averages 31 miles per gallon combined, it means you'll be making quite a few stops at the fuel pump. And that feels very old school, especially when you compare it to that hybrid C63. But old school isn't always bad. And I have to say, I love that this cabin feels positively old school, especially compared to this car's rivals, which feel a little bit over digitalized. Starting with the buttons down here, which are much more ergonomic than everything that's hidden away in an infotainment system. I've got a climate control system with actual knobs down there, so it's really easy to use while you're driving. And the same goes for the rotary switch down here and the volume knob as well. It just means I can actually focus on enjoying this car for what it's about, but also I can make adjustments without really thinking.
Don't get me wrong, the screen-dominated dashboards of the C63 and M3 are impressive to behold, but when you're on the move, more than anything, you just want the simplest of controls to use. Something this aging Alfa has plenty of.
And then, of course, you've got this infotainment system up here, which actually is pretty basic, and it definitely feels like it comes from the iPhone 6's era. And the same goes from that reversing camera as well. Actually, the reversing camera looks a bit PlayStation 2 in the graphics, but you do get CarPlay from Apple and also Android Auto, although it isn't wireless. At least the instrument cluster ahead of me looks really, really cool with the new digital screen and with the retro dials, which perfectly suit the character of this car. And I love the carbon fibre on the dash. It's exposed and it looks very, very exotic.
That exotic feel doesn't hamper usability either, as there's a decent amount of storage space, including a properly sized glove box, which isn't true for a lot of right-hand drive cars these days.
The seats as well are very, very comfortable. In fact, the driving position is bang on. And I really like the fact that these seats feel properly sporty. Although in the back, it's definitely a little bit smaller than some people would like. It's okay, decent head, decent knee and decent foot room. But for passengers in the middle, there is a massive tunnel down there, which is going to compromise on more than just foot space. At least the boot is far bigger than you'd expect. In fact, it goes really deep, and there are a couple of levers at the very back, which when you pull them, the back bench folds down. So, while the BMW M3 and Mercedes-AMG definitely feel like a lot more tech for their money, because they literally are, this Alfa Romeo stands in defiance against unnecessary advancement. It feels like the best of today, although in not very long, that'll be the best of yesterday. So if you want one, I wouldn't hang about.